Jesper Parnevik was one of the greatest players of his era, but was also the strangest. He once hired the psychic bodyguard of a former Soviet president to cosmically align his practice habits. At the same time, he had a diet of only eating fruits and volcanic sand to cleanse his body. He once missed a PGA Tour tournament after driving to the wrong course, in the wrong city, and the wrong state. At another PGA Tour tournament, he lit a cigar in the fairway of the last hole and holed out for the win while still puffing on it. While Jesper was one of the most eccentric players on tour in the late 90s and early 2000s, he was a force to be reckoned with. He played in 3 Ryder Cups, won 5 PGA Tour tournaments, and went head-to-head with players like Tiger, Watson, and Phil. In fact, his relationship with Tiger has been tumultuous over the years, and many won't know that he played a significant role in why Tiger Woods will likely never be considered golf's undisputed GOAT. What he is definitely known for is his fashion. Like his personality, his clothes are a bit different. Instead of normal caps, he wears visors, straw hats, and his trademark flipped-up brim caps. He befriended Swedish fashion designer Johan Lindenberg to create lots and lots of eccentric golfing outfits that revolutionized golf fashion, and later signed to Puma alongside the fashion duo of Ian Poulter and Ricky Fowler. After 2 hip operations in his 40s and nearly cutting off his finger while winching his boat, Jesper took a break from professional golf to spend more time with his family, where he started 2 successful Swedish TV shows. After recovering from his injuries and wanting to take time off filming, he would once again start competing, this time on the Champions Tour. Here, he would win another title in 2016 and continues to compete in a handful of events to this day. However, it wasn't always clear that Jesper would become a professional golfer. In fact, he was more likely to have succeeded in comedy clubs than on the golf course. That's because his father, Bo Parnevik, was the most famous comedian in Sweden when he was growing up.
We've had a discussion about peace in the Middle East. But the problem is that President Brezhnev wants too big a piece of the Middle East.
To put into perspective how famous he was, while the Super Bowl draws 44% of local TV traffic, his dad's weekly show would regularly draw 75. That made it difficult for Jesper to step out of his father's shadow. In fact, at 13, he only had a 26 handicap. The fact that this drew attention was embarrassing for him, as good players were already scratch handicappers by that age. While his father never pushed him, his last name made him practice insanely hard to become successful, where training was treated all work and no play. That time of his life, he says, was fueled by desperation, loneliness, and the desire to prove others wrong. And that work eventually paid off. He joined the Swedish national team a few years later and would go on to play for his country in 2 Eisenhower trophies and 1 European team championship. After playing college golf in Florida, he turned professional in 1986, after which he headed straight to the PGA Tour qualifying school. He then proceeded to do something that no other professional has likely done since.
Then when I turned pro, I actually went to tour school in the United States and made it through the first stage and second stage and never turned up on the third stage because Volvo had just been the main sponsor, just turned him to be the main sponsor for the European Tour, and that was one of my sponsors then, and they wanted me to play the European Tour qualifier instead. So I'm pretty much the only one, I would say, professional that made it through first stage and second stage and never showed up for the finals of the PGA Tour qualifier.
Looking back, this worked out great for him, as he established himself on an easier circuit before making the jump to the PGA Tour. Still, at that time, especially after failing his first European Tour Q score in 1987, the move was risky and meant that he had no place to play to earn a living. He had to keep himself busy for a year, playing mini, Challenge Tour and Nordic League events to stay competitive. Despite winning tournaments in those years, including the 1988 Q School, it would take until being in a playoff against Severiano Ballesteros at the 1992 Mallorca Open for Jesper to make an important breakthrough.
Anyone that plays golf knows that swing thoughts, or pretty much that golf is a pretty messed up game to start off with. So swing thoughts are, I bet you, for me anyway, they're new every day, every week, every year. I don't think I ever had a swing thought for more than one. If it lasts a week, I'm very happy. And it could be anything from lifting my left toe at impact I've had and played well.
That week's swing thought was not putting towards the hole, but to a larger visualized circle around it, where, to make it easier, he pulled up the brim of his hat. This thought somehow helped him get into a playoff against local hero Seve. However, in Seve fashion, after missing every single fairway and every single green, the Spaniard held a 10-footer on the 6th playoff hole to win the title. Jesper learned from that loss as he proceeded to win 4 European Tour titles and over €1 million in prize money over the next 6 years. What Jesper's most known for during that period, however, is his performance in 2 majors, the 1994 and 1997 Open Championships. At the 1994 Open Championship, Jesper was leading heading to the last hole. Having not looked at the scoreboard and hearing cheering from the group behind, he thought he needed to birdie his last to have a chance at the title. He went pin hunting and left it in a horrible lie. From where he did not make the up and down for par. Nick Price, who was 2 shots down on 17, would end up holding a 70-foot monster on the 17th green, and then play the shot on 18 that would have assured Jesper at least a playoff. In an interview in 1997, he said that this was his first chance to win a major, and he did not believe he deserved it at that point of his career. He said it was too soon. A few months later, at the 1997 Open, he may have regretted those words. After leading in round 3, Parnevik's putter was ice cold, shooting a 2 over 73 and losing to Justin Leonard's 65 on the final day. He stated that the pressure was too much in that moment, and that loss hurt much more than the one in '94. Unfortunately, that's the closest he ever got to another major. He had an outside chance at the 1998 Open and a few top 10s in others, but never contended again. Maybe it's for the best though, as he did have the habit of naming his children after golf courses, so I'm sure they're glad they weren't called Troon or Turnberry. Jesper started playing the PGA Tour full-time in 1994. He always enjoyed living and playing in the States, but did not win anything in the first 4 years on tour. He knew he needed to change something, and that made him try out all sorts of weird things. He wore flashing sunglasses on his flights to better connect his left and right brain hemispheres. For 3 months, he only ate volcanic sand and fruits to, quote, cleanse his body. He replaced all his fillings with porcelain at the dentist to cure his allergies, and hired a man who claimed he was Michael Gorbachev's psychic bodyguard to help him practice better. In an interview, he once said that if you're going to try something, then you should try it to the fullest extent. This meant that he left no stone unturned. As nutty as some things seemed to be, the mindset did seem to work. He won 5 times on the PGA Tour from 1998 to 2001, played 3 Ryder Cups, and was well known for celebrating in style, with his golf and with what he wore. When he played his Ryder Cups, he was the only player to have had special caps made for him. A year after his first Ryder Cup, after hitting the green on the last hole of the 1998 Phoenix Open, knowing he had won, he lit up his cigar in the fairway and putted out with it still in his mouth. At the 2000 Byron Nelson Classic, he wore bright pink pants during the playoff where he beat Davis over III and Phil Mickelson. In addition to turning the heads of the conservative Dallas audience, it also introduced the J. Lindenberg brand to the world. Meeting him a few years earlier, Lindenberg was disillusioned by how players were so unstylish when compared to the past, and actively sought out Jesper to help him change that fact. And change they did. In addition to his cap, Jesper would become the most unconventionally dressed player on tour, and that attention seemed to help with sponsors and with his overall recognition on the golf stage. While he earned $15 million in prize money over his career, not including endorsements, he also spent a lot of it. Now with 4 kids, 2 nannies, a full-time caddy and a beautiful Florida home, his highest spending year involved forking over $2 million. This included having a Swedish nanny who took care of his kids when he was playing tournaments in 2001. Her name was Ellen Nordegren, and she would change the golfing landscape forever. In the early 2000s, Ellen lived with the Parneviks as an au pair, which is somebody that helps with housework and childcare. However, as she traveled with the family, she would also get acquainted with the golf world. Jesper's wife Mia once said that there was a big line of single golfers wanting to meet her. They went absolutely crazy for her. And that included a certain Mr. Woods, who, after playing against Jesper in Ryder Cups and majors, would be introduced to her in 2001 and would eventually marry her in 2004. However, after Tiger's extramarital affairs came to light in 2009, his career would be put on hold and the Parneviks were left mortified.
Sad about it since I'm kind of feel a little bit sorry for Erling since me and my wife were at fault hooking her up with him, and we just probably thought he was a better guy than he is then, and I would probably just have to apologize to her and hope she uses a driver next time and then a 3-iron, I would say.
Being a massive story, Jesper was bombarded with questions about the issue. Unfortunately, he couldn't even distract himself by playing golf, as injuries started to catch up with him. He had the typical golf injuries, including neck injuries, torn ligaments, and 2 hip surgeries, all in his 40s mind you. But he also had silly injuries like nearly cutting off his finger winching his boat, breaking ribs falling off of his swagway, and breaking his toe while tripping over a case of beer. This basically forced him into the sidelines for 5 years. He did play a few PGA Tour events every year, but never well enough to make a full comeback. He used that time to do something he hadn't had the opportunity to do: spend time with his family. Although he couldn't enjoy the lavish lifestyle of a few years earlier, as no money was coming in, he said that spending time with his kids was pure bliss. Having trained and eaten at a golf club for the past 20 years, it was a nice change for him to actually spend time with his loved ones. Also during that time, the idea of starting a reality TV show was born. The Parneviks was a TV show that streamed for 4 seasons on Swedish TV. From the clips that you find on YouTube, the show looks like one big fever dream. After turning 50 and having finished the 2nd season of his TV show, his body seemed to have recovered well enough to play tournaments again. After 8 years of not playing competitively, Jesper would clinch the 2016 Insperity Invitational on the Champions Tour for his first win in over 15 years. Since then, Jesper released a Gangnam Style music video featuring Dustin Johnson, started his 2nd reality TV series with his wife, sold his $10 million home tickets to Florida, and plays the occasional Champions Tour event. He even made a bet with a friend that he wouldn't shave his hair until he won a tournament, truly living his best life. To watch the comeback of one of Europe's most emotional players, Marcel Siem, click the video on screen.